Preparing great vegetarian soup recipe. A great vegetarian soup recipe doesn't just tweak your appetite for the main meal, it can also simply make you feel good. Here are some great tips to come up with your own vegetarian soup recipe. Experiment with vegetarian soups. There are really no hard and fast or clear-cut rules on how you should do it. You just have to follow the preliminary basics and then let your imagination rule. This means that you may just have to sauté the usual garlic, onions and your choice of vegetables, add the soup stock or vegetable broth and then add whatever you like including spices. If you are preparing a cold and raw recipe, then you can experiment by swapping some ingredients like watermelon for tomatoes or vice versa. The only thing you might want to keep in mind is your own taste buds as well as those of whom you are preparing the meal for. It would be better though to reserve experimentation on your free days and simply use tested soup recipes on regular days when you have little time. Be generous with spices at times. A small portion of green onions, celery or carrots sauteed in onions will make a big difference in taste. Other soup recipes however may need a little more than the usual herbs and spices. Try a few mixes like oregano and rosemary, pepper and lemon or pepper and lemongrass. You can also use other spices like cayenne and cumin. One tip with vegetarian soup recipe seasoning is to use an appropriate amount or mix of spices so you can cut back on salt. Thicken the soup. Part of the secret to savory vegetarian soup recipe includes making the texture just right. Texture may of course be improved by thickening the soup. One secret of Oriental cooks is that they use flour or cornstarch to thicken a recipe instead of using milk. Some would suggest adding a precise number of parts of flour or cornstarch to water, but sometimes you just have to make an estimate. To put more texture or thickness to your soup, simply add a small amount of cornstarch. Simply mix a small amount of cornstarch with some warm water and then slowly pour the mixture while stirring in soup that is just about ready to be taken out of the fire. Convert non-vegetarians usually add meat to make the soup tastier. However, vegetarians can substitute the meat with other ingredients. Aside from spices, pepper and green onions, you can also add a bit of soy sauce to give your soup some flavor. Beans can also add to the flavor of your vegetarian soup recipe and even supply much needed protein which others normally get from meat. Aside from beans, peas, lentils and squash are also tasty additions to it. Freezing soup. Preparing great vegetarian soup recipe. A great vegetarian soup recipe doesn't just tweak your appetite for the main meal, it can also simply make you feel good. Here are some great tips to come up with your own vegetarian soup recipe. Experiment with vegetarian soups. There are really no hard and fast or clear-cut rules on how you should do it.